Good afternoon. We would like to present the research of virtual reality in art therapy for children with autism of the authors Vasyl Andrunyk, Natalya Kalka, Tetiana Shestakevych. Abstract. Art therapy is used in a variety of settings to support people of all ages with mental health and physical disorders. Regular art therapy sessions help students to communicate with peers and family, develop self-confidence, and control their emotions. However, traditional art therapy tools are not always suitable for use by children with autism in case of increased sensory sensitivity, which makes it impossible to work with paint, brushes, or listen to certain musical compositions. One of the effective tools that therapists use to help people with autism better communicate and connect with others and the world around them is virtual reality. Introduction. Autism is becoming an increasingly common diagnosis, and recent research from the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention of Diseases, USA indicates that every 44 children are diagnosed with an ASD. In Ukraine, over the past 5 years, according to official statistics of the Ministry of Health of Ukraine, diagnosis of the autism spectrum has increased by almost 200%. One of the characteristic features of autism spectrum disorders is difficulty with verbal and social communication. Meanwhile, many individuals with autism have an extraordinary ability to think visually. However, children with ASD may not have the opportunity to use artistic media, or it can have been difficult, for example, in large classes. Art therapy offers therapists the opportunity to work one-on-one with such children to develop a wide range of different skills. Restriction of art therapy for children with autism and virtual reality. While children with high-functioning autism may have access to art education alongside their peers, it is nearly impossible for children with more severe forms of autism. An example would be fine motor skills, as many children and adults of the autism spectrum have difficulties with it. That impairs the ability to draw, usage of scissors, or play instruments. One of the proposals to overcome these challenges is multimedia art for children, teenagers, and young people of different spectrums. Emphasis is placed on the use of digital painting via virtual reality. Difficulties in such therapy are also described, for example, when the art therapist observes the client's work on the monitor instead of looking at the client himself. In addition, users, mostly in the first sessions, may experience mild dizziness, a feeling that in extreme cases may last for a short time after the therapy session is over. All the above points to the need for further research to evaluate the effects of virtual art therapy for different age groups, children, adolescents with different mental health conditions, etc., in the short and long term. Development of a conceptual model of the virtual art therapy system. Very often, children with autism lack the basic skills needed in the areas of communication, cognition, learning, generalization, and motor coordination, etc. Therefore, it may be helpful for an art therapist to regularly consult with a pediatric physical therapist or an ASD specialist to assess the child's specific sensory issues. VR has several benefits for students with ASD, such as helping overcome excessive shyness, influencing children who are very hyperactive or have heightened emotions, and more. In this case, virtual isotherapy can fulfill the role of real VR meditation. A use case diagram can be considered a good starting point for discussing key project participants and process without going into too many implementation details. So as you can see in figure 1, in the developed system there are 4 actors: a child with ASD, freelancer, art therapist, psychologist. Figure 2 shows the sequence diagram. It consists of 4 system objects: child with ASD, art therapy, therapist, VR developer. To activate the system, the child with ASD logs into the system, after which the therapist checks the role and selects art instruments. A child with ASD gets access to these tools. Tasks are completed. The therapist checks and stores the received information. A VR developer creates a set of VR art tools and adds personalized software application. After that, the system reports whether the new tools have been added. Art therapy includes a set of art tools that form a VR therapist and VR developer. The visual representation of the graph in the form of an activity diagram is presented in figure 3, where the initial state is set by the art therapist and transitions to the state of art interaction with a child with ASD. Then the initial parameters of therapeutic art tools are selected. If everything is correctly designed, then a transition to interaction with a freelance developer of virtual reality takes place. Stages of the art therapy procedure for a child with autism. On the recommendations of art therapist, the autism specialist, the following stages of art therapy, namely isotherapy for a child with ASD, were suggested. Figure 4. State 1. Sensory emotions, selection of art material. Stage 2. Creative process, VR drawing. Stage 3. Distancing a view of art from the site. Stage 4. Verbalization of feeling and thoughts. VR art therapy session. Art therapy sessions were conducted using a standalone Meta Quest 2 virtual reality helmet and touch controllers. The software used in the research is OpenBrush and Drawing Desk, which have no alternatives among free software for VR drawing. We will present the feature of the procedure using virtual reality, in which the art therapy technique drawing on the free topic was used. 3 autist children, one 10-year-old girl and two 12-13-year-old boys, took part in our pilot study. The children were familiarized with the procedure, but it is worth noting that they experienced some elevators and tension were putting on the helmet. Figure 5, which was created by an autistic girl and depicts a person, was created very quickly. Analyzing its psychological and art therapy component, we can notice the predominance of blue and gray colors, which hypothetically can indicate dominant dysthymia states, melancholy, sadness, anxiety, and at the same time prudence and analyticalness, and fiction of even being stuck in these states. The absence of eyes also indicates isolation and a desire to isolate oneself from reality, which reflects the personal and social position of autist child. Figure 6, 12-year-old boy, broadcast through the color scheme and symbols of the predominance of focus on the inner world. However, it is worth emphasizing the combination of gray and orange colors, which signal on the one hand a lack of emotion, depressions, and apathy, gray color, and pleasant feelings and experiences, warmth, and the desire to stand out among others, orange. Since the orange color was added during the completion of the drawing, it can be perceived as an internal signal of being filled with positive emotions, which the child was able to chaotically convey precisely through the color. Analysis of the drawing, figure 7, of 13-year-old boy allows us to draw conclusions about a diverse palette of experiences since many colors and objects are observed. Note that the color range varies from black to yellow and orange, which indicates dynamic and inner expressiveness of emotions. Considering the answers to the questions about the main objects, they defined a yellow circle and a black square. This indicates a certain dichotomy both in emotional and cognitive states and the presence of contractions of these components as parts of the individual's mental reality trying to dominate each other. Discussion. VR is also an ideal option for people who have sensory sensitivity and are afraid of contact with paint or other art materials. The paint will not get on clothes and not pollute the room. No need to clear your brushes. In VR, you can instantly remove all the paint from your brush with the push of a button on your controller. One of the disadvantages of virtual drawings is the lack of tactile feedback, such as applying a brush to the canvas. Although developers are trying to solve this problem, vibration and sound effects when drawing, it is difficult to control the pressure of the brush on the canvas. The authors are also faced another problem, the level of awareness of virtual reality sessions. Full VR immersion requires prior preparation, and it may take a lot of time to prepare a child with ASD for a virtual art therapy session. Conclusions. Based on the result of physiotherapy in children with ASD, we state that the first stage of this category of children turned out to be the longest and most exciting, according to the subjective assessment of the art therapist according to specific criteria. The child experienced interest and joy, which he demonstrates through the selection of tools and colors and their approbation in the virtual canvas. During stage 2, children are usually immersed in the creative process that is not accompanied by reactions, but is associated with complete immersions, with an evidence of the inner workings of mental process. At stage 3, which is related to distancing, children begin to distance themselves from the created pictures and perceive it is on their own. At this stage, the first difficulties arise, where specialists must be actively involved, art therapist, PMPC, employee, etc. It is the projection of the inner world onto the picture and interaction with it that helps to establish contact with oneself and the outside world. The fourth stage was the most problematic, which fully reflected the difficulties of the children with ASD, which are related to verbalizing their own emotion, states, and experiences. Thank you for your attention.